All right, everyone, we are back. And let's go ahead and run the program so we know where we left off. All right, name Brandon. So Brandon, find yourself in a forest. What do you do? Option 1, climb a tree. Option 2, walk north. So we can pick either one of these options. All right, I've died. Enter. The program exits. Well, so if the program exits, let's say I want to try it again. Well, I'd have to restart the program, which is annoying. So what we want to add in is a loop so that we don't have to do that. All right, so we'll use a while loop. And then there's a parameter in here. And something you should not do is just set it to while true. It will work, and I'll show you that it will work. But you're not supposed to do while true, and you'll find out why in a second. Okay, Brandon equals, and then we choose 1 because we want it to end. You've died, hit enter again. Welcome, your personal interactive adventure. What is your name? It starts again, Brandon, etc. And so the point here is that the reason why you don't do while true is you can never exit this through using it. Essentially, it'll just go on forever and ever. It's always true. But what we want to do is make it so that you can choose to exit or restart, so that there's actually some choice in the matter. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop it this way. So basically what we want to do is get some sort of input from the user that'll tell us whether or not they would like to continue or not. So basically we want to ask for input so that we know whether or not to exit the program. So what we could do is say while console.readline, let's see, readline.contains, and then we'll put an R for restart, and then it'll continue, right? And then what we do is we say console.writeLine, give us a sort of a buffer so that you know, and then we could do console.writeLine, and then do a bunch of underscores so that it like acts as like a divider between games. And then I think what we would do is say console.writeLine, would you like to restart? And then we'll just do, in fact, we're going to change this to be a y/n sort of thing, so that it's yes, no. And we're going to change this to say just console.write because we want the reply to happen on the same line as the read. Okay. Now we do a n, or let's see, contains, yeah, y, to check it there in case of you typing in a y for yes or no. Okay, now we'll go ahead and start this again. But the problem is that this happens at the beginning, and we don't have that console.writeLine, and we don't obviously want at the very beginning for it to ask for a continue. But if we hit Y, it starts again, and we say Brandon, and then let's choose option 1. Obviously this ends poorly for you, and let's say you want to not restart, so you press N, then it exits. But what we want to do is have it so that it's only, this only happens if we've gotten to this part. So what we want to do then is to say a variable, and then we do string continue, or actually we can't use continue because that's a protected word. So we'll just say cont for continue is equal to, and then we'll say we'll start it as y. So it starts on y. And then what we say here is if well, it's not an if statement. The while statement has a conditional statement in it, so it is an if statement, but I'll explain that later. So while cont.contains y, and then we go down here and we say dot equals console.readline. And now it should start here, and then you put in your name, and then it says, hello, Brandon, and then it asks you the question. If we choose option 1 now, and you die, it now asks, would you like to restart? Instead of there just being like this random console read line up here, at the very beginning, we go through the entire adventure before asking the question. If you put yes, it'll start over. But now you can see your old adventure is still here, and that's kind of annoying. So what we want to do is in here, before everything's typed, go console.clear. And now we can go Brandon, well, whatever, and then hit 1, and then say yes, and it clears it, and we start over. So, all right, so let's go over this, what happened. So we stored a value inside of a string variable. This string variable was checked here to see if it contains a y. And in fact, what we want to do is make it a lowercase y, because you could have an uppercase or lowercase y, and say variable the cont dot toLower, and then that will change it like we did earlier over, where was it, here. We change it to be a lower variable, so it's all lowercase. It goes from being uppercase to lowercase. And then we check it against a lowercase value so that we don't have to write two statements, because normally you'd have to say or cont.contains, and then you would do the uppercase variant like this. Now that's just two statements, whereas doing .toLower reduces it to one statement, makes it more efficient, less confusing, etc., etc., etc. All right, so now we have let's explain the while loop, because this is for beginners, so we obviously want to go over what loops are. So loops are saying everything inside of these brackets. So you can see this little dotted line that goes all the way down to this closing bracket here. Everything between this opening and this closing bracket, in fact, I'll zoom in a little bit, execute all this code down to here. So execute all this code over and over and over again until this statement here is false. And when that statement is false, you no longer execute anything. So what happens is we go through this entire process here. We get down to the bottom, and this variable, which we are checking in this conditional statement here, gets set, its value gets set to be equal to whatever you type in. So here we start out setting it to y, because obviously the first time we want to make sure that this code executes. That way it doesn't ask you without going through it one time before. And then later we set this variable again to be whatever you type in, and then it just continues to check here as you go through the number of different times until it finds it to be false, and then the program exits. So another thing we could do here is change the what is your name to console.write instead of write line. And you'll see that when it starts out, the input right here starts on the same line as the question, which makes it a little bit more understandable. Whereas if you do console.write line, it adds a new line, and then it ends up down here below the question, which is fine for if we have a multi-option question like this. So what we should also do is underneath this multi-option question, we should do console.write, not write line, and give it a little bit of an indication that there's supposed to be input here. So do like answer for your answer. And now we can say, Brandon, okay, you find yourself in a forest. What do? Option 1, climb a tree. Option 2, walk north. Well, let's say walk. Hit enter. You come to the edge of a river, and then, of course, that's where that progression ends. We have to expand on it. So we get to where would you like to restart, and the answer, we say yes. We restart, we type in a name, we pick an option, now we hit no, and the program exits. And obviously we'll want to add some more spacing like we have in here around, so that you understand what's going on. You find yourself in a forest. What do? We add it give it some spacing. Now we give it some spacing between there and your answer, and then it'll look a little bit nicer, a little bit cleaner. There you go. Now that looks a little bit weird because the spacing here and the spacing here aren't even, so what we can do is just change that spacing to be on the other side of this line. And then what that happens is you go Brandon, and then this, and then, oh, it's nice and clean now, except we need another space after your answer. So Control copy, Control V, oh, Control C, Control V. And now, oh, what's my option? Okay, climb, I die, yes, restart, etc., etc., etc. So I'm not going to spend too much time cleaning this up, but we'll go ahead and add one last one after your answer so that it doesn't look weird there. Okay, now you can imagine that if you wanted to create a long story with like 20 or 30 different scenes with a bunch of different options, this would get extremely large. You'd probably get hundreds, perhaps thousands of lines of code, depending on how complex the options are. So the next part, I'm going to be showing you how to break this up into functions and classes so that your piece can be much more coherent and be more compact in terms of lines of code. Like for instance, and this is actually something that I'll show you in the next video, is how are we going to take this repeat of having a blank line and a bar to divide. You see it happens here, we'd use it here, we use it here, and what we're going to do is we're going to put it into a function that we can just call, so it's one line of code instead of two, and it'll be shorter as well. So anyways, for now, I think covering loops or while loops is the only type of loop I'm going to cover right now at the moment. I will eventually get into for loops and for each loops and those type of things a bit later, I think. Mostly the for each loop, because that's going to deal with arrays. But we're not going to obviously get into that yet, because that's going to happen later when we make this story to be able to be added to a list or an array and then read from. So it's much more compact, it makes it more extendable. So anyways, hope you enjoyed the video so far. I'm going to keep doing these, so just let me know what you think. And that's all for now.